The town of Maplewood was as quiet as it always was on chilly autumn nights. Alaric stuffed his hands into the pockets of his jacket as he strolled along the familiar trail behind his modest home. It was his nightly ritual, a way to clear his head after a long day. The faint crunch of gravel under his boots and the occasional rustling of leaves were the only sounds accompanying him. Until Onyx barked. "Onyx!" Alaric called, pulling the leash tighter. "What is it, boy?" The black Labrador, his ever-loyal companion, stood frozen, his body tense as he stared into the dense shadows of the trees lining the path. His ears perked up, his tail stiff with cautious anticipation. Alaric followed the dog's gaze, squinting into the gloom. At first, he saw nothing but the soft sway of branches in the breeze. Then, as the moonlight filtered through the canopy, a figure emerged. It moved hesitantly as though testing the ground with each step. "Hello?" Alaric called, his voice firm but not unfriendly. The figure froze. Slowly it stepped into the light. Alaric felt his breath hitch. She wasn't human, that much was clear. Her features were delicate and ethereal, almost too perfect to be real. Her skin shimmered with a soft lavender hue, her hair falling in waves of liquid silver. Her eyes were what struck him most, deep indigo orbs that seemed to hold galaxies within them. She looked like a being from the pages of a fantasy novel, and yet here she was, standing in the middle of Maplewood Park. Onyx barked again, wagging his tail now, as if deciding the stranger wasn't a threat. "Who are you?" Alaric asked cautiously. The woman tilted her head, her expression a mix of curiosity and wariness. When she spoke, her voice was melodic, as though every word were part of a song. "I am Kyrrha." Alaric blinked. The name was foreign, alien, in every sense of the word. "Kyrrha," he repeated, testing it on his tongue. "What are you doing out here?" Her gaze dropped to the ground, and for the first time, Alaric noticed she was shivering. Her clothing, a flowing silvery material that clung to her frame, seemed ill-suited for the cool night air. "I am lost," she admitted. Her tone was soft, almost hesitant, and her accent gave her words a strange, lilting quality. Lost didn't even begin to cover it, Alaric thought. But before he could press further, Onyx trotted over to Kyrrha and nuzzled her hand. She flinched at first, but then hesitantly placed a hand on the dog's head. "He likes you," Alaric said, surprised. Onyx wasn't quick to warm up to strangers, let alone ones who seemed otherworldly. Kyrrha managed a small smile, her fingers trailing through the dog's fur. "He is warm." Alaric hesitated, debating his next move. She didn't seem dangerous. If anything, she looked vulnerable. Whatever brought her here clearly hadn't left her in good shape. "Look," he said finally. "You can't stay out here. It's too cold, and you don't look like you're dressed for this weather. My place is nearby. You can come with me, at least for tonight." Kyrrha's eyes widened, a flicker of mistrust flashing across her face. But then she glanced down at Onyx, who was now sitting patiently at her feet, his tail thumping against the ground. After a long pause, she nodded. "Thank you. I will accept your offer." Alaric led Kyrrha back to his small house at the edge of town. It was a modest place, a single-story home with cozy furnishings and an air of practicality. He held the door open for her, and she stepped, inside, her gaze immediately darting around the room. "Here," Alaric said, grabbing a blanket from the couch. "You look like you could use this." Kyrrha accepted the blanket with a quiet murmur of thanks, draping it over her shoulders. She moved toward the fireplace, drawn to the flickering flames. "Do you want something to eat?" Alaric asked as he shrugged off his jacket. "Or drink? Tea, maybe?" "I do not require nourishment in the way you do," she replied, her eyes never leaving the fire. "But I thank you for your kindness." Alaric frowned, intrigued. "So you're not from around here, are you?" Kyrrha turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "No, I am not." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. "Where are you from?" he pressed, leaning against the armrest of the couch. She hesitated, as though debating whether to answer. Finally, she said, "I come from a world far from here, a place you would call the stars." Alaric blinked, his mind struggling to process her words. "You're saying you're an alien?" "Yes," she said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He stared at her, half expecting her to laugh and tell him it was a joke. But her expression remained serious, her gaze steady. "Why are you here?" he asked, his curiosity outweighing his disbelief. Kyrrha's shoulders slumped slightly. "It was not my choice, my vessel. It malfunctioned. I had no other option but to land here." Alaric let out a low whistle, running a hand through his hair. "And now what? Is someone coming to get you?" Her expression darkened. "Perhaps, but not all who seek me have good intentions." The cryptic response sent a chill down his spine, but he decided not to push her for more details. Not yet, anyway. "Well," he said, trying to lighten the mood, "for now you're safe here. My house isn't much, but it'll keep you warm." Kyrrha's lips curved into a faint smile. "You are kind, Alaric." The sound of his name and her lilting voice made his chest tighten in a way he couldn't explain. As the night wore on, Alaric found himself learning more about Kyrrha, or at least as much as she was willing to share. She spoke of her home with a mix of longing and sadness, her words painting vivid images of a world unlike anything he could imagine. In return, Alaric told her about Earth, its people, its quirks, and the little things he loved about life in Maplewood. She listened intently, her indigo eyes sparkling with curiosity. By the time the clock struck midnight, a sense of ease had settled between them. Onyx lay curled up at Kyrrha's feet, his soft snores filling the room. "You should get some rest," Alaric said, standing and stretching. "I'll set up the guest room for you." Kyrrha hesitated before nodding. "Thank you, Alaric, for everything." He shrugged, trying to downplay the warmth her gratitude sparked in him. "It's nothing. Good night, Kyrrha." As he turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of her watching him, her expression soft and thoughtful. It was a look that stayed with him long after he left the room. Alaric woke the next morning to the soft patter of rain against the window. The early morning light filtered through the thick clouds, casting a muted glow over the town of Maplewood. His mind still lingered on the events of the previous night, the unexpected arrival of Kyrrha, her strange and haunting beauty, and the calm, almost serene way she had settled into his home. It all felt unreal, but at the same time, everything about her felt right. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and rubbed his face, trying to shake the grogginess from his system. Onyx, as usual, was already awake, his tail wagging enthusiastically, when he saw Alaric stir. "Good morning, boy," Alaric muttered, scratching the dog behind the ears. The simple, everyday gesture helped ground him as he moved through his morning routine. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee, Alaric made his way downstairs. The smell of something faintly sweet wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the earthy scent of rain-soaked earth. Kyrrha was already awake, her silver hair now tied back in a loose braid. She was standing near the counter, carefully placing what appeared to be small, translucent fruits into a bowl. Kyrrha turned when she heard him approach. Her lips curved into a small, shy smile, but there was something else in her eyes. A flicker of gratitude, perhaps, or maybe something deeper. "Good morning," Alaric said a little awkwardly. "I didn't expect you to be up so early." She nodded, her voice soft. "I do not sleep as you do. My rest is different." Alaric's curiosity piqued, but he didn't press. Instead, he made his way to the counter, his gaze falling on the fruits. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, iridescent with a faint glow that seemed to pulse with life. "What are these?" he asked, reaching out to touch one. Kyrrha's gaze lingered on his hand, but she didn't stop him. "They are called Elmira. They are nourishment for my kind, but they will not harm you." Alaric lifted one of the fruits, studying it closely. It felt cool to the touch, smooth and delicate, almost fragile. They look beautiful. They are, Kyrrha agreed. They are the color of our skies. She seemed lost in thought for a moment before she returned her attention to the fruit, her fingers moving with graceful precision as she arranged them into a neat pile. Alaric, sensing her unease, cleared his throat. Would you like some breakfast? I have eggs, bacon, earth food. Kyrrha's eyes met his, and for a brief second Alaric saw something unfamiliar flicker in them, something soft and vulnerable. I would like to try your food, she said softly. Alaric smiled, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. All right, let's make you breakfast. The quiet of the morning was punctuated by the sizzle of eggs in the pan and the sound of Kyrrha's soft laughter as Onyx attempted to steal a piece of bacon from the counter. The dog had already developed an inexplicable bond with the alien princess, and Alaric couldn't help but feel a sense of amusement at the way she seemed to soften under the dog's attention. There's something about animals, Kyrrha mused, her fingers brushing the edge of her plate. They are pure. They don't judge. Alaric glanced at her, his own smile fading as he considered her words. There was a quiet sorrow in her voice that he couldn't ignore. You're not like most people I've met, he said, keeping his tone gentle. I mean, you've lived through things most people wouldn't even imagine. Kyrrha's gaze darkened slightly and she nodded, but she didn't say anything more. The air between them felt heavy for a moment. Alaric was still trying to piece together the mystery that was Kyrrha. She was from another world, a being who had somehow found her way to Earth, lost and alone. There was so much more to her story, but Alaric wasn't sure if she was ready to share it yet. I'm glad you're here, he said after a beat, offering her a reassuring smile. I don't know what's going on, but I'm glad you don't have to be alone anymore. Her gaze softened, her lips parting as if she were about to speak, but the sudden sound of something outside interrupted them. A loud metallic clang followed by a low hum filled the air. Alaric's heart skipped a beat as he rushed to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to see. There, just outside the edge of the forest, was a craft. Not a plane, not a helicopter, but something else entirely. A ship, sleek and angular, with flashing lights and a low, humming pulse of energy. The ship hovered just above the ground, its silent presence a stark contrast to the sudden pounding of Alaric's heart. Kyrrha stepped up behind him, her breath catching in her throat. Who are they? Alaric's voice was barely a whisper. She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze locked on the ship as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Then her voice, soft and steady, filled the silence. They are here for me, she said, her words laced with a strange mix of fear and acceptance. Alaric turned to her, his brow furrowed. You don't seem happy about that. Kyrrha's eyes flickered to him, and for a brief moment something like sadness crossed her face. They are not here to bring me home. They are here to take me. Take you? Alaric repeated, his confusion growing. Why? Because I belong to them, Kyrrha said, her voice growing colder with each word. My people have a different way of living. I was never meant to leave. Alaric's heart clenched at her words. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the pain she was trying so desperately to hide. It was clear that she wasn't just running from something, she was running from someone. He turned to face her fully, determination flashing in his eyes. No, he said, his voice firm. You're not going anywhere with them. Not if you don't want to. Kyrrha's eyes softened, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. It is not that simple. It is, Alaric replied, taking a step closer. You have a choice, Kyrrha. You're not alone anymore. I'll help you, no matter what. She looked at him for a long moment, her indigo eyes studying him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Then finally she nodded. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But this is not over yet. Alaric's gaze shifted back to the ship hovering just outside his window. A part of him wanted to rush out, to confront whatever was waiting for her, but he knew that would be foolish. There was a bigger battle to fight here, a battle for her heart, for her freedom, and he wasn't going to let her face it alone. As the day wore on, the presence of the ship lingered in the back of Alaric's mind. The more he thought about it, the more questions he had. Who were these people Kyrrha had run from? What did they want with her? And most importantly, what was she going to do now? Kyrrha had been silent for most of the day, retreating into herself, once again. Alaric had given her space, but he couldn't help but feel the pull to protect her, to ensure she was safe. He didn't know how he could, but he would. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Onyx barking in the yard. Alaric jumped up, his heart racing. Had they come for her? Rushing outside, he found the dog standing in the front yard, staring at a figure emerging from the trees. Alaric's heart stopped in his chest as the figure came into focus. It was another one of them, another alien, with the same otherworldly features as Kyrrha. Alaric's heart pounded as he stared at the figure stepping from the shadows of the trees. Onyx barked furiously, his tail wagging in a mix of excitement and warning, but Alaric couldn't bring himself to move. The air felt thick with tension, the gravity of the moment settling heavily on his chest. The figure that approached was undeniably alien, tall, with smooth, glowing skin in shades of violet, and eyes that seemed to shimmer like a galaxy of stars. But what struck him most was the unmistakable aura of authority that surrounded her. She was not like Kyrrha, soft and hesitant. No, this woman, this being, carried herself with a kind of military discipline, an aura of power and control that sent a chill down Alaric's spine. The alien stopped just a few feet from him, her eyes studying him with cold detachment. "I am Commander Aerolith," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "I've come for her." Alaric took a step forward, instinctively placing himself between the mysterious woman and Kyrrha, who had appeared on the porch, her expression unreadable. "I don't think you're going anywhere," Alaric replied, his voice steely with defiance. His protective instinct flared. Aerolith's gaze flickered briefly to Kyrrha, then back to Alaric, her expression hardening. "You do not understand what you're involved in, human. You are risking your life by standing in my way. And you don't understand what's at stake here," Alaric countered, his chest tight with a mix of fear and anger. "I won't let you take her." Aerolith studied him for a long moment, and for the first time her expression shifted, just slightly. There was a flicker of something almost amused in her eyes. "You think you can stop me?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "You're only human." "I may be human, but that doesn't mean I'm powerless," Alaric said, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "You're not taking her anywhere, not without a fight." Kyrrha stepped forward, her face drawn with worry. "Alaric, please," she began, her voice soft, but there was a tremor beneath it. He turned to her, his hand resting on her arm, offering reassurance, even though his own heart was pounding with dread. "I'm not letting them take you, Kyrrha." Commander Aerolith's gaze lingered on them, her lips curving into a small, calculating smile. "It's admirable," she said slowly, "how much you are willing to risk for her, but you are out of your depth, human." Before Alaric could respond, Kyrrha's voice broke through the tense air. "Stop it, Aerolith. This isn't the way." Alaric turned, his eyes searching her face, trying to understand what was going on. "Kyrrha, you're not going with her, right? You have a choice here." Kyrrha's expression was torn, her eyes flickering between him and Aerolith. I don't know what to do, Alaric," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not safe here. The people who are after me." She faltered, as though she couldn't bring herself to say the words. Aerolith took a step forward, her gaze fixed firmly on Kyrrha. "You know what's at stake. Your rebellion has consequences." Alaric's mind raced. Rebellion? What was Kyrrha involved in? Who was she running from? And why was Aerolith so intent on taking her back? He turned to Kyrrha, his face filled with concern. "Tell me what's going on, Kyrrha, please." Kyrrha hesitated, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't want you to get involved in this, Alaric. It's too dangerous. You don't understand what they're capable of." I don't care how dangerous it is. Alaric replied firmly, his hand gently touching her arm. I care about you, and I'm not letting them take you. Aerolith's voice cut through the tension once more. Enough of this. She snapped her fingers, and in that instant, several other figures emerged from the trees, their movements precise and coordinated. There were 3 more aliens, all dressed in sleek dark uniforms. The sight of them sent a ripple of fear through Alaric, but his resolve didn't waver. Kyrrha's safety was more important than anything. What are you doing here? Kyrrha asked, her voice sharp with anger. Your place is with us, Kyrrha, Aerolith said, her voice cold. You cannot escape your fate. You were never meant to be free. Kyrrha's eyes narrowed, her body stiffening. I'll never return to you. I'll never go back to that life. Alaric watched the exchange, his mind spinning. There was so much he didn't understand. Why was Kyrrha running from these people? And why was she so afraid of going back? The tension in the air was palpable as Aerolith regarded Kyrrha for a long moment. Then you leave me no choice, she said quietly, before turning her gaze to Alaric. I will take her one way or another. I suggest you stand aside. Alaric didn't move. He stood firm, his gaze locked on Aerolith. You'll have to kill me first. Aerolith's eyes glimmered, her lips curving into a smile that was more of a snarl than anything. So be it. The world seemed to slow around Alaric. In the blink of an eye, one of Aerolith's companions darted forward, their movements almost too fast to track. Alaric's heart raced as he instinctively stepped in front of Kyrrha, bracing for whatever was coming. But before the alien could reach him, a loud, sharp bark echoed through the air. Onyx lunged forward, teeth bared, aiming for the alien's ankle. The creature yelped in surprise, stumbling back, but it didn't take long for the alien to retaliate. With a swift movement, it kicked Onyx aside, sending the dog tumbling into the grass. No! Alaric shouted, reaching for Onyx, but the dog was already recovering, his body springing back up with surprising speed. Kyrrha, who had remained silent throughout the standoff, suddenly stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Stop, she cried, her voice sharp and commanding. For the first time, the group of aliens hesitated, confusion flickering in their eyes. Aerolith, however, remained unmoved. You do not command us, Kyrrha, Aerolith said, her voice low and threatening. I do now, Kyrrha replied, her voice unwavering, though her hands trembled slightly. I'm not going back. Not to you. Not to any of you. There was a heavy pause, a tense silence between them all. Alaric held his breath, unsure of what would happen next. He could see the fear in Kyrrha's eyes, but there was also something else, something powerful, something fierce. Aerolith's gaze shifted, considering Kyrrha's words, and for the first time she seemed uncertain. If you think you can stop us, Aerolith said coldly, then we will be forced to leave you behind. You have no idea what you're facing, Kyrrha. We will find you wherever you go. You cannot escape your fate. Kyrrha lifted her chin, her eyes locked onto Aerolith's with a steely defiance. Then let's see if I can't make my own fate. The alien stood in silence for a moment, before Aerolith finally spoke. This isn't over. Her voice was full of venom, but she turned, signaling for her companions to follow. Alaric watched them leave, his mind still reeling from the confrontation. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for now, they were safe. Kyrrha's breath came in shallow, gasps as she stepped closer to Alaric. I'm sorry. I didn't want you to get caught up in this. Alaric reached out, his fingers gently brushing her hand. I'm not going anywhere, he said softly. I'm here. For you. She looked at him, her eyes filled with something unreadable. I don't know what's going to happen next. Alaric squeezed her hand reassuringly. We'll figure it out together. The tension that had filled the air after Aerolith and her crew departed was far from gone. Alaric stood beside Kyrrha on the porch, both of them silent, staring at the space where the alien group had disappeared into the darkness of the forest. The night seemed unnaturally still, the kind of silence that followed after a storm had passed but before the damage was fully realized. Alaric couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something far worse than what they had just faced Kyrrha's eyes, once full of defiance, now seemed clouded with uncertainty. She was holding herself together, but it was clear that the confrontation had shaken her. Alaric, who had never imagined his life would be filled with alien invasions, was now on edge, just as unsure of what would come next. He wanted to ask questions, to demand the truth from her, but there was something in the way she looked at him, something deep in her eyes that made him hesitate. He wasn't sure if he was ready to hear everything she had to say. Kyrrha shifted slightly, her gaze dropping to the ground. "I didn't expect it to happen like this," she said softly. "I thought I could leave it all behind. I thought I could keep you out of it." Her voice quivered slightly, revealing the fear she had been hiding. Alaric placed a hand on her shoulder, turning her to face him. "You didn't want me involved," he said gently, his voice reassuring. "But I'm already in this, Kyrrha. You're not alone in this fight." For a moment, Kyrrha's eyes flickered with something between gratitude and guilt. She took a deep breath as if preparing herself to tell him the truth. "I never meant for you to get dragged into my past," she whispered. "But the people Aerolith works for, they want more than just me. They want everything. They want to control the future of my people, the entire world." Alaric's brow furrowed. "Your people?" Kyrrha nodded slowly, her voice growing steadier as she spoke. "I'm not just some lost alien wandering the earth. I'm part of something much larger. I come from a race of beings called the Veli, and we've been fighting for our freedom for centuries." She looked away as if embarrassed. "I never wanted anyone to know, but now it's impossible to hide." Alaric's mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything she was saying. "So these people, Aerolith's group, they're the ones you're running from?" Kyrrha nodded again. "They are part of the Dominion, the ones who want to control all the colonies in the galaxy. They hunt down anyone who resists them. My father was their leader once, but he turned on them. He chose to protect his people instead of obeying the Dominion's orders, and they turned on him too." She paused, looking up at Alaric with sorrowful eyes. "They think I'm a threat. They think if they capture me, they can control the Veli again." Alaric's chest tightened at her words, a fire of fury kindling inside him. He could understand the pain in her voice, the agony of having a past that was out of her control, but there was something else too. An overwhelming sense of admiration. Kyrrha wasn't just some helpless alien hiding from the dangers of the universe. She was a fighter. She was a rebel. A survivor. "And you're still fighting them?" Alaric asked softly, though he already knew the answer. Kyrrha gave him a faint smile, though it was tinged with sadness. "Of course, there's no way I could stop now." The weight of the situation hit him then. Kyrrha had been running, hiding, fighting for so long. Her entire life had been a battle against forces far beyond her control. And now she was standing, here at the mercy of the people she feared most. Alaric stepped closer to her, reaching for her hand. His touch was firm, grounding, a reminder that despite the chaos swirling around them, they weren't alone. "You don't have to do this alone anymore, Kyrrha," he said, his voice unwavering. "I don't care what you're up against. We'll fight this together." For the first time, Kyrrha let out a shaky breath and nodded. "I hope you're ready for that, Alaric. It's not going to be easy." He gave her a small, determined smile. "Nothing worth fighting forever is." She met his gaze, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. But just as quickly, that hope dimmed again. The truth was, even if they did join forces, even if they managed to take on the Dominion together, there was no guarantee they would succeed. The next few days passed in a haze of preparations. Alaric helped Kyrrha gather what she needed: weapons, communication devices, and anything else that might be useful in their struggle against the Dominion. She explained to him the basics of their technology, what the Veli used to fight back against their enemies. It was advanced alien tech, far beyond anything humanity had, but in Kyrrha's hands it felt familiar, like an extension of herself. They trained together in the forest surrounding the cabin. At first, it was only small things: how to handle alien weapons, how to read the subtle shifts in the environment that could signal danger. But as the days passed, The stakes grew higher, and Alaric found himself drawn into the deeper intricacies of the rebellion. The more he learned, the more he understood how much Kyrrha had risked to come to Earth, and how much she had already lost. One afternoon, after a particularly intense training session, they sat together on the porch, the sky painted in shades of orange and purple as the sun set. Onyx lay by their feet, his tail wagging lazily, while Alaric and Kyrrha were lost in their own thoughts. "It's hard to believe it's only been a few weeks since I met you," Alaric said quietly, breaking the silence. "You've already turned my life upside down." Kyrrha turned her head to look at him, her lips curving into a small smile. "Is that a bad thing?" she asked, her voice teasing. Alaric shook his head, his gaze softening. "Not at all. But I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to be caught in the middle of a war, let alone be the one who had to fight beside you." Kyrrha's smile faded, and she turned to face him more fully. "You don't have to fight for me, Alaric. You didn't sign up for this. You can still walk away." Alaric reached out, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice firm and filled with a quiet intensity. "Where you go, I go. I made a promise, Kyrrha. I'm here for the long haul." Tears welled in Kyrrha's eyes, though she quickly blinked them away. "I never thought I'd find someone who would stand by me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Not after everything that's happened." Alaric leaned forward, brushing his lips against her forehead in a tender kiss. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here." Kyrrha closed her eyes, leaning into him. For a brief moment, everything felt still, peaceful even. But deep in her heart, she knew it wasn't over. The Dominion was coming. They would not stop until they had Kyrrha, and Alaric wasn't sure if he was ready to lose her. But he had made his choice, and now it was time to fight for it. The days that followed were filled with preparations, each one more urgent than the last. Kyrrha had gone from being a rogue fugitive to a commander in her own right, and Alaric had quickly become her partner in arms, standing by her side as they trained and strategized for what lay ahead. But even amidst the rising tension, there was something undeniable between them. A bond that had formed amidst the chaos and had only grown stronger with each passing moment. Alaric had grown accustomed to the sound of her laughter, though it was rare, and the way she would catch his gaze across the campfire at night, her eyes soft and full of unspoken words. They were both warriors, but there was something else there now. Something deeper. Something neither of them could ignore. The future was uncertain, but in that fleeting moment with the war on the horizon, they had each other. The night before the final confrontation, the sky was clear, the stars as bright as ever. Alaric stood at the edge of the small camp, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. He knew what was coming. The Dominion would arrive at dawn, and with them an army far more powerful than anything he or Kyrrha could face alone. But he wasn't alone. Not anymore. Kyrrha stepped up beside him, her presence a steadying force. She was dressed in the sleek, dark armor of her people, lightweight yet strong enough to withstand a barrage of weaponry. Her gaze was unwavering as she looked out into the vast expanse of space beyond, the constellations twinkling like distant promises. "Are you ready for this?" Alaric asked, his voice low but resolute. Kyrrha didn't hesitate. "I was born ready, but this time it's not just me against them. It's us. Together." Her words sent a rush of warmth through him, despite the icy chill of the night air. Alaric turned to her, his hand reaching out to find hers. For a moment the world seemed to stop, the night air thick with the weight of the moment. His fingers intertwined with hers, the simple touch grounding him in ways he never thought possible. "I don't know what the future holds," he admitted, his voice quieter than usual. "But I know one thing for sure. I can't imagine a future without you in it." Kyrrha's eyes softened, the usual steel in her gaze melting into something gentler, something more vulnerable. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I had lost everything. My family, my people, even my hope. But you, You've given me something I didn't think I could have anymore. Alaric pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. The fire of the camp crackled behind them, but all he could focus on was her, the woman who had turned his life upside down in the most unexpected way. You've given me something too, Kyrrha, he murmured. You've given me a reason to fight, a reason to live, and I'm not going to stop fighting for you. Her breath hitched, and she closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his, in a kiss that was soft and gentle at first, an unspoken promise. Then it deepened, the intensity of their connection rising with every passing second. Their kiss was a culmination of everything they had been through, a promise that no matter what happened, they would face it together. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, their hearts racing in unison. Kyrrha smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars above them. I never thought I would find love again, she said quietly, but I found it in you. And I found it in you, Alaric replied, his voice thick with emotion. The moment felt suspended, in time, a fleeting eternity. But they both knew that their peace wouldn't last. The Dominion was coming. They had one final chance to take them down. The battle came the next morning, as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon. Kyrrha and Alaric stood side by side, watching as the enemy ships descended from the sky, their dark shapes blotting out the sun. But this time, they weren't alone. The small army they had gathered, a mix of humans, Vilei, and other rebels, stood behind them ready to fight. Alaric turned to Kyrrha one last time before the battle began. Whatever happens, we stick together. Always. Kyrrha nodded, her expression fierce. Always. The battle was brutal. Alaric fought alongside Kyrrha, his instincts guiding him as they took on wave after wave of Dominion soldiers. The air was filled with the sounds of weapons firing, explosions ringing out, and the shouts of soldiers as they clashed. But in the chaos, Alaric found a moment of clarity. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Kyrrha fought like a whirlwind, her alien strength and agility allowing her to take down enemy after enemy. Alaric couldn't help but watch her in awe, her movements fluid and graceful, even in the heat of battle. She was a warrior, but there was something more to her, a depth of strength that went beyond her physical abilities. The final confrontation came when Aerolith, the leader of the Dominion forces, stepped onto the battlefield. He was tall, imposing, and clad in dark, sleek armor that reflected the light like a shadow. He was everything Kyrrha had feared, everything she had fought to escape. Aerolith's eyes locked with Kyrrha's across the battlefield. You think you can defeat me, princess? He sneered, his voice cold and cutting. I don't need to defeat you, Kyrrha said, her voice unwavering. I just need to stop you. And with that, the fight was on. Kyrrha and Aerolith clashed in a brutal fight, the ground shaking with the force of their blows. Alaric fought beside her, protecting her back as she faced her former commander. The battle felt endless, but Alaric refused to let his guard down. He was fighting for Kyrrha, for their future. In the end, it was Kyrrha who landed the final blow. She disarmed Aerolith and, with a swift move, incapacitated him, sending him crashing to the ground. The fight was over. Exhausted but triumphant, Alaric and Kyrrha stood together, their hands finding each other once again. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. There was still work to be done, but for the first time, they could see a future, one where they could be free. Kyrrha turned to Alaric, her eyes filled with tears of relief. It's over, she whispered. We did it. Alaric pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Yes, we did, he said softly. And now, we can finally live. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its warm light over the battlefield, they knew that the fight was over. But this time, they had won. Not just the battle, but each other. Their love, born of hardship and struggle, had triumphed. And now they could face whatever came next. Together.